Shaquille O'Neal. Surprises. Longtime employee with unforgettable gift. Are you ready to witness one of the most heartwarming acts of employee appreciation ever recorded? Today, you're going to discover how Shaquille O'Neal surprised a devoted longtime employee with a gift so unexpected and meaningful that it changed not just one life, but an entire family's future. This is a story about loyalty, gratitude, and how recognizing the people who work behind the scenes can create moments of pure magic. If this story touches your heart the way it should, please hit that like button right now, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications because moments like this remind us that true success is measured by how we treat the people who help us achieve it. Now, let's witness this incredible surprise that nobody saw coming. The crisp Atlanta morning air carried the scent of fresh coffee and breakfast pastries as employees began arriving at Shaq's corporate headquarters for what they assumed would be a routine Monday morning staff meeting. The sleek building housed the nerve center of Shaquille O'Neal's business empire. Restaurants, technology investments, real estate ventures, and entertainment projects all coordinated from this bustling hub of activity. Among the employees, making their way through the glass doors was Maria Santos, a 52-year-old woman whose quiet presence had been a constant at the company for nearly 8 years. As the head of facilities management, Maria was responsible for everything from maintaining the building to coordinating catering for meetings, ensuring office supplies were stocked, and managing the dozens of small details that kept the operation running smoothly. What most people didn't know about Maria was that she arrived at work every morning at 6:30 a.m., a full hour and a half before anyone else, to personally ensure everything was perfect for the day ahead. She would check that the conference rooms were properly set up, that fresh flowers adorned the reception area, and that Shaq's office was immaculate for whatever meetings he had scheduled. "Good morning, Mrs. Santos," called out James, one of the younger marketing coordinators, as he passed her in the hallway. "You're here early again." "Same time as always," Maria replied with her characteristic warm smile, carrying a box of supplies toward the main conference room. "Mr. O'Neal has an important investor meeting at 9 a.m., so I want to make sure everything is perfect." This was typical Maria, always thinking about making others' jobs easier, always staying in the background while ensuring everyone else could shine. She had been doing this not just for months or years, but for nearly a decade, through company expansions, office relocations, and countless high-stakes meetings that had shaped Shaq's business success. What Maria didn't know was that Shaq had been quietly observing her dedication for months, taking note of the early arrivals, the meticulous attention to detail, and the way she treated every task, no matter how small, as if it were crucial to the company's success. "Maria," called Sandra, the executive assistant, as she entered the building, "Shaq wants everyone in the main conference room at 8:30 this morning. He said it's important that you're there too." "Me?" Maria looked surprised. "Are you sure? I'm not usually included in company meetings." "He specifically asked for you," Sandra confirmed. "Said the meeting couldn't happen without you." Maria felt a flutter of nervousness. In 8 years of working for the company, she'd rarely been included in formal meetings. Her role was behind the scenes, and she preferred it that way. She worried that maybe something was wrong, that perhaps her performance had been lacking in some way. As 8:30 approached, employees gathered in the conference room that Maria had spent an hour that morning ensuring was perfectly arranged. The large table was surrounded by chairs, fresh coffee was available, and the presentation screen was ready for whatever Shaq planned to discuss. Shaq entered the room with his usual commanding presence, but there was something different about his energy today, an excitement that seemed barely contained beneath his professional demeanor. "Good morning, everyone," Shaq began, scanning the room until his eyes found Maria, who was sitting quietly in the back corner, still wearing her work apron and looking uncomfortable among the business-attired staff. I called this meeting because I want to talk about something that's been on my mind for a while. It's about excellence, dedication, and the people who make success possible even when they never get recognition for it. The room was attentive, but most employees assumed this would be a typical motivational speech about company performance or upcoming projects. "Maria Santos," Shaq said suddenly, causing every head in the room to turn toward the woman who looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. "Could you come up here, please?" "Mr. O'Neill, Maria started, clearly flustered. "Please, Maria. This won't take long, and I promise you're not in any trouble." With obvious reluctance, Maria made her way to the front of the room, her hands fidgeting with her apron as she stood next to Shaq, who towered over her 5'2" frame. "I want everyone in this room to understand something," Shaq continued, placing a gentle hand on Maria's shoulder. "Success in business isn't just about big deals, smart investments, or innovative strategies. Success is built on a foundation of people who care about excellence in everything they do, no matter how small the task might seem." The room was completely silent, sensing that something significant was about to happen. For 8 years, Maria has been the first person to arrive at this office and one of the last to leave. For 8 years, she's made sure that every meeting runs smoothly, every space is welcoming, and every detail is handled with care. But what most of you don't know is the full extent of what Maria does for this company and for all of us. If you're already feeling the emotion building in this moment, please take a second to hit that like button. What Shaq reveals next about Maria's dedication will absolutely amaze you. As Maria stood uncomfortably at the front of the room, Shaq pulled out a thick folder from his briefcase. The weight of it suggested this wasn't just a casual collection of notes, but something comprehensive and carefully documented. "Maria, I hope you'll forgive me, but I've been keeping track of some things," Shaq said with a warm smile. "Not because I was checking up on you, but because I wanted to understand the full scope of what you contribute to our success." He opened the folder and began reading from what appeared to be detailed notes. In the past year alone, Maria has coordinated 247 meetings, ensuring each one had the proper setup, catering, and materials. She's worked 52 weekends, unpaid overtime, to prepare for major presentations and company events. She's personally resolved 1,047 maintenance issues, vendor problems, and facility challenges, most of which the rest of us never even knew existed. The room was captivated, many employees hearing these numbers for the first time and beginning to understand the scope of Maria's contribution. "But the numbers don't tell the whole story," Shaq continued. "Maria, do you remember the Johnson Industries meeting last March?" Maria nodded nervously. "The one where the air conditioning broke?" "That's right. It was 85 degrees in the conference room. We had 12 investors flying in from across the country, and it could have been a disaster that cost us a multi-million-dollar deal." Shaq turned to address the room. Maria didn't just call a repair, service, and hope for the best. She drove to 3 different stores, bought industrial fans with her own money, set up a temporary cooling system, and personally stood in that room directing airflow so our guests would be comfortable. She saved that deal, and she never asked for reimbursement for the fans. Several people in the room looked surprised, clearly unaware of this incident. "Or," Shaq continued, "the time last September when we had the visit from the NBA executives. Maria noticed that one of the executives had mentioned in his bio that he was diabetic. Without being asked, she researched diabetic-friendly catering options, coordinated with the restaurant to provide appropriate meals, and personally insured. He had what he needed throughout the day. Maria's face was red with embarrassment, but Shaq wasn't finished. Last December, when Sandra's mother was in the hospital, who do you think covered her duties while she was with her family? Maria worked double shifts for 2 weeks, handling both her own responsibilities and executive assistant duties, never once complaining or asking for additional compensation. Sandra, sitting at the conference table, had tears forming in her eyes as she remembered that difficult time. "And just last month," Shaq said, his voice growing more emotional, "when the Thompson family visit was scheduled, you know, the one where we were trying to close the Chicago restaurant deal, Maria learned that their 8-year-old daughter was allergic to nuts. She not only ensured all the catering was nut-free, but she also set up a small play area in the adjacent office with toys and activities to keep the little girl entertained during the business discussions. The room was completely silent, with many employees realizing they had never truly understood the depth of Maria's contributions. But here's what really gets me," Shaq said, his voice now thick with genuine emotion. "Last week, I discovered that Maria has been using her vacation days to cover for other employees when they needed time off for family emergencies. She's used her own paid time off to ensure that other people could be with their families during difficult times." Maria looked down at her feet, clearly overwhelmed by the public recognition. "Maria," Shaq said gently, "do you want to tell everyone why you do all of this? Why you go so far above and beyond what anyone could reasonably expect?" Maria looked up, tears in her eyes, and spoke in a quiet voice that barely carried to the back of the room. Because this job saved my family," she said simply. "When I started here 8 years ago, my husband had just been diagnosed with cancer. We had medical bills. I was working 3 part-time jobs just to keep our health, insurance, and I was scared we were going to lose our house." The room was completely still, hanging on every word. "Mr. O'Neill hired me for this position, gave me good health insurance, and treated me with respect from the very first day. When my husband needed to go to specialist appointments, Mr. O'Neill never questioned when I needed to leave early or come in late. When we were struggling with medical bills, he gave me advancement opportunities and raises that made it possible for us to keep our home." Her voice grew stronger as she continued. "My husband has been cancer-free for 4 years now. My daughter was able to go to college because I had stable employment with good benefits. This job didn't just give me work, it gave my family hope. So when I come in early to make sure everything is perfect, when I work weekends to prepare for important meetings, when I use my vacation time to help other employees, I'm not sacrificing anything. I'm giving back to a company and a man who gave my family our lives back." The conference room was completely silent, except for the sound of several people quietly crying. Shaq, visibly moved by Maria's words, placed both hands on her shoulders. "Maria, what you just described, that gratitude, that dedication, that understanding that we're all part of something bigger than ourselves, that's the heart of what makes any organization successful. But you've given far more to this company than we've given to you, and it's time we recognize that properly." He gestured to Sandra, who stood up and handed him an envelope. "Which is why," Shaq said with a growing smile, "I've been working on a little surprise for you." Maria looked at the envelope in Shaq's massive hands with confusion and growing anxiety. In her 8 years with the company, she'd never been the center of attention like this, and the weight of everyone's eyes on her was overwhelming. "Maria, before I give you this," Shaq said, "I want everyone in this room to understand something important. What I'm about to do isn't charity, and it's not a bonus. This is recognition for value provided, for dedication demonstrated, and for the kind of character that can't be taught or bought. He opened the envelope and pulled out what appeared to be several documents. "Maria, you mentioned that this job saved your family 8 years ago. Well, today I want to make sure your family's future is secure for years to come." The room was electric with anticipation. First, Shaq announced, effective immediately, "You're being promoted to Director of Operations." This isn't just a title change, it comes with a 40% salary increase and expanded responsibilities that reflect what you've actually been doing for years. Maria gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Mr. O'Neill, I'm not finished," Shaq said with a grin. "Second, the company is establishing the Maria Santos Excellence Fund, a $50,000 annual budget that you'll control to implement improvements and innovations in our operations. Your ideas, your oversight, your vision for how we can do things better." Several employees in the room began applauding, but Shaq held up his hand. "Third, and this is the big one, Maria. You mentioned that your daughter was able to go to college because of the stability this job provided. Well, I've been in touch with her university, and I've established a full scholarship in your name for students from working families who demonstrate the same dedication and character that you've shown." Maria was now crying openly, completely overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was happening. "But the scholarship isn't just in your name," Shaq continued. "Your daughter Isabella has been selected as the first recipient. All of her remaining college expenses, tuition, books, room, and board are covered. She can focus on her studies without worrying about the financial burden." The room erupted in applause, but Shaq wasn't finished with his surprises. "Fourth," he said, pulling out another document, "I know you and your husband Roberto have been renting the same apartment for 10 years, saving money and hoping to eventually buy a home. Well, I'd like to help make that dream a reality." He handed Maria a set of keys. "These are the keys to a 3-bedroom house in a neighborhood you're going to love. It's yours, free and clear. No mortgage, no rent, just a place for your family to call home for as long as you want." Maria sank into a nearby chair, completely overwhelmed. Several employees were openly crying now, moved by the generosity they were witnessing. "And finally," Shaq said, his voice now soft with emotion, "I want to establish something called the Maria Santos Standard. Every new employee will receive a presentation about your example of dedication, excellence, and care for others. Your approach to work, your commitment to making everyone around you successful, your understanding that every task matters. That's going to become the benchmark for what we expect from everyone in this organization." He knelt down beside Maria's chair, bringing his enormous frame closer to her eye level. "Maria, you've spent 8 years making my success possible. You've ensured that every important moment in this company's growth went smoothly. You've taken care of details that allowed me to focus on big-picture decisions. But more than that, you've shown everyone around you what integrity and dedication look like." "I don't know what to say," Maria whispered through her tears. "You don't need to say anything," Shaq replied. "But I do need you to understand something. This isn't a reward for good service. This is recognition of partnership. You've been a partner in this company's success from day one, and it's time your role and compensation reflected that reality." Roberto Santos, who had been secretly invited to the meeting, appeared in the doorway of the conference room. He worked construction and was still in his work clothes, having been told only that his wife needed him at her office for something important. "Roberto!" Maria exclaimed, jumping up to embrace her husband. "How are you here?" "Mr. O'Neill called me this morning," Roberto said, his own eyes filling with tears as he took in the scene. "He told me I needed to be here for something special. but he didn't tell me what. Shaq approached Roberto and shook his hand. Roberto, your wife has been an integral part of our success for 8 years. What happened here today is long overdue recognition for her contributions. Maria always talks about how grateful she is for this job, Roberto said, his voice thick with emotion. She talks about you and this company like it's family. But we never expected. This is beyond anything we could have imagined. That's exactly the point, Shaq said. When someone gives their heart to their work, when they care about excellence in everything they do, when they make everyone around them better, that deserves recognition that matches the value they provide. As the meeting concluded and employees began to return to their desks, many stopped to congratulate Maria and express their own appreciation for everything she had done for them over the years. What had started as a routine Monday morning meeting had become a celebration of dedication, loyalty, and the power of recognizing unsung heroes. 3 hours after the surprise announcement, Shaq found Maria in her newly expanded office. What had previously been a small storage room adjacent to the main workspace had been transformed into a proper director's office, complete with windows, a conference table, and space for the operational planning she'd been doing from a cramped desk for 8 years. "How are you feeling?" Shaq asked, settling into one of the new chairs that made the space feel both professional and welcoming. "Overwhelmed," Maria replied honestly, wiping tears that seemed to resurface every few minutes. "Mr. O'Neill, I still can't believe this is, real. The promotion, the house, my daughter's scholarship. It's like a dream." "It's not a dream, Maria. It's what happens when excellence is finally recognized appropriately. But I wanted to talk to you privately, because what happened this morning is about more than just you." Maria looked puzzled. "What do you mean?" "I mean that your example, your approach to work, your understanding of what it means to be part of a team that's going to transform how this entire organization operates." Shaq leaned forward, his expression serious but warm. "Maria, in the business world, we spend a lot of time talking about leadership, about innovation, about disruption. But what you've demonstrated is something more fundamental: the power of caring about the success of everyone around you." "I was just doing my job," Maria said modestly. "No, you were doing everyone's job. You were making sure that every person in this building could do their job better, because you had eliminated obstacles, anticipated needs, and created an environment where excellence was possible." Shaq pulled out his phone and showed Maria a series of emails. "These started coming in about an hour after our meeting. Employees sharing stories about times you've helped them, problems you've solved for them, ways you've made their work lives better." He read from one of the emails, "Maria stayed late on my first day to help me set up my computer and showed me where everything was in the building. She made me feel welcome when I was nervous about starting a new job." Another, "When my father passed away last year, Maria not only covered my responsibilities while I was at the funeral, but she also arranged for flowers to be sent to my family and made sure I had everything I needed when I returned to work." There are dozens of these, Maria. Dozens of stories about how you've made people feel valued, supported, and cared for. That's not facilities management. That's leadership. Maria looked surprised. "I never thought of it that way." "That's what makes it authentic. You weren't trying to be a leader or make an impression. You were just treating people the way you'd want to be treated. And that natural approach to caring about others is the most powerful form of leadership there is." Shaq stood up and walked to the window overlooking the main workspace. "Do you see what's happening out there?" Maria joined him at the window and observed employees who seemed more energized, more collaborative than usual. Small groups were gathered in conversation, and there was a noticeable sense of purpose in the way people were approaching their tasks. "What happened this morning sent a message to everyone in this organization," Shaq explained. "It told them that dedication is noticed, that character matters, that caring about excellence in small things leads to recognition for big things. But more than that," he continued, "it showed them what's possible when someone approaches their work with the attitude you've always had. Half the people in this building are probably thinking right now about how they can be more like Maria Santos." As if to prove his point, Sandra knocked on the office door and entered with a smile. "Maria, I just wanted to let you know that 3 different employees have volunteered to help with the Johnson project next week. They said after hearing about everything you've done, they want to make sure our client experience is as perfect as you've always made it." After Sandra left, Shaq turned back to Maria. "You see, excellence is contagious. When people see what caring about your work and caring about others can lead to, they want to be part of that standard." "But, Mr. O'Neill," Maria said thoughtfully, "what if people start expecting rewards like mine for doing good work? What if they think they should get houses and promotions just for showing up?" Shaq smiled at her perceptiveness. "That's exactly why I wanted to establish the Maria Santos standard. It's not about the specific rewards, it's about the specific attitude and approach that earned those rewards." "What do you mean?" "I mean 8 years of consistency. 8 years of going above and beyond without being asked. 8 years of making everyone around you more successful. 8 years of treating every task, no matter how small, as if it mattered to the company's success. That's not something you can fake or do for a few months hoping for recognition. That's character. Maria, that's who you are as a person, and that's what we're recognizing." As they continued talking, Maria began to understand that her surprise wasn't just about her past contributions, it was about setting an example for the future culture of the organization. "I want you to know," Shaq said as their conversation concluded, "that this morning was one of the most satisfying moments of my business career. Not because of the deals I've made or the money I've earned, but because I finally got to properly recognize someone who embodies everything I believe about excellence, dedication, and treating people right. Thank you, Mr. O'Neill, not just for today, but for 8 years of treating me with respect and giving my family the stability we needed. Thank you, Maria, for 8 years of reminding me that success is built by people who care about doing things right, even when no one's watching." 6 months after Maria's life-changing surprise, the transformation in Shaq's organization was remarkable and measurable. The Maria Santos standard hadn't just become a catchphrase, it had evolved into a comprehensive approach to employee development, recognition, and company culture that was attracting attention from business publications and corporate leadership experts. "Maria, I need you to see something," Shaq said, entering her office with a stack of papers and a broad smile. The space had evolved too, now featuring a wall of thank you notes from clients, employee feedback, and photos from company events that Maria had orchestrated. "What is it?" Maria asked, looking up from the operational efficiency report she was preparing. One of many improvements she'd implemented since her promotion to Director of Operations. "These are the results from our employee satisfaction survey," Shaq said, spreading the documents across her conference table. "And these numbers are unprecedented." The statistics were indeed impressive. 94% of employees reported feeling valued and appreciated, up from 67% 6 months earlier. 89% said they felt motivated to exceed expectations in their work, compared to 54% previously. Most significantly, employee turnover had dropped to nearly zero, and the company was receiving unsolicited job applications at 5 times the previous rate. "But the numbers don't tell the whole story," Shaq continued. "Read some of these comments. Maria read aloud from the survey responses. Since seeing how Maria was recognized for her dedication, I have been inspired to approach my own work with the same level of care and attention to detail. Another, the company's commitment to recognizing real excellence, not just high-profile achievements, makes me feel like my contributions matter. And another, Maria Santos represents everything I want to be as an employee and as a person. Her standard has become my standard. Maria, what you started, or rather, what recognizing what you started, has transformed this entire organization. We've gone from a good company to an exceptional one, and it's because people now understand what excellence actually looks like. The impact had extended far beyond internal culture. 3 major business publications had featured the company as a case study in employee recognition and retention. Harvard Business School had requested permission to include the Maria Santos Standard in their curriculum on organizational leadership. But the most meaningful recognition, Shaq said, pulling out a letter, came from someone you've never met. He handed Maria an envelope addressed to her personally. The return address showed it was from Isabella Santos, her daughter. "Mom," the letter began, "I wanted you to know that your story has been shared in my business ethics class as an example of authentic leadership. My professor used your approach to work as a case study in how individual excellence can transform organizational culture. But more than that, Mom, I wanted you to know how proud I am to be your daughter. Not because of the house or the scholarship or the promotion, but because you've shown me what it means to find purpose in serving others, to find fulfillment in making other people's success possible. The scholarship in your name has been awarded to 5 other students this semester, all from working families like ours. Each of them wrote essays about people in their lives who demonstrate the Maria Santos standard of dedication and care for others. You've become more than just my mom. You've become a symbol of what's possible when someone approaches their work and their life with genuine care for others. I love you, and I'm proud to carry your name." Maria was crying again, but these were tears of joy and overwhelming gratitude. "Your daughter isn't the only one who's been inspired," Shaq continued. "We've received over 500 letters from people who heard your story. Employees at other companies, students, parents, people who were struggling to find meaning in their work." He showed her a few examples. "Dear Ms. Santos, I'm a janitor at AEE High School, and after hearing your story, I started approaching my work differently. I realized that keeping the building clean and welcoming isn't just maintenance. It's creating an environment where students can learn and teachers can teach effectively. Thank you for helping me find pride in my work. Ms. Santos, I'm a nurse, and your example reminded me why I chose this profession. It's not just about medical procedures. It's about caring for people during their most vulnerable moments. Your dedication to excellence in small things has inspired me to bring that same attention to every patient interaction. Dear Maria, I'm a teacher, and I've shared your story with my students as an example of how approaching any task with care and dedication can lead to extraordinary results. Several of my students have started applying the Maria Santos standard to their schoolwork and part-time jobs. As Maria read through the letters, she realized that her moment of recognition had sparked something much larger than personal success. Shaq, she said, using his first name for the first time in 8 years, I never imagined that just doing my job well could affect so many people. That's the beautiful thing about authentic excellence, Shaq replied. It's contagious. When people see someone genuinely caring about their work and the people around them, it makes them want to care more too. But there's one more surprise, Shaq said with a grin. The Maria Santos Foundation is expanding. Foundation? The scholarship program has grown beyond what we originally planned. Other companies want to partner with us to recognize employees who demonstrate your standard of excellence. We're creating a network of organizations committed to identifying and celebrating their own unsung heroes. Next month, we're hosting the first annual Maria Santos Excellence Awards. Companies from across the country will nominate employees who embody dedication, care for others, and commitment to excellence in everything they do. Maria was speechless, overwhelmed by the idea that her example had grown into a movement. And Shaq added, "I'd like you to be the keynote speaker at the awards ceremony." "Me? Speak to business leaders? I don't know if I can." "Maria, you're going to speak to people who need to hear your message. That true success comes from caring about the success of others. That excellence in small things leads to excellence in big things. And that the most important leadership happens when no one's watching." As they concluded their meeting, Shaq stood and shook Maria's hand, a gesture of respect between equals. 8 years ago, I hired someone to manage facilities. What I actually got was someone who taught my entire organization what excellence looks like. Thank you, Maria, for showing all of us that the most meaningful success comes from making other people's success possible. A year later, the Maria Santos Excellence Awards had recognized over 200 employees across 50 companies. Each recipient received not just recognition, but resources to further their education, support for their families, and opportunities to share their stories with others. Maria's keynote speech at the second annual awards ceremony would be remembered as one of the most moving presentations in corporate America. Excellence isn't about being perfect. It's about caring enough to do your best, no matter how small the task. It's about understanding that your work is part of something bigger than yourself. And it's about treating every person you encounter as someone who deserves your very best effort. The woman who had once worked quietly in the background had become a symbol of authentic leadership, proving that true influence comes not from titles or recognition, but from the daily choice to make excellence a habit and service to others, a calling. This incredible story reminds us that behind every successful organization are people whose dedication and excellence often go unrecognized, and that true leadership is shown by celebrating and elevating those who make success possible for others. If this story inspired you to recognize the unsung heroes in your own life or workplace, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more stories about the power of recognition and appreciation, and share it with someone who might need to be reminded that their dedication matters. Remember, excellence is contagious, and recognizing it in others is one of the most powerful ways to inspire a culture where everyone strives to be their best. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful journey of appreciation, recognition, and the transformative power of seeing and celebrating excellence in everyday heroes.